setting standards, constantly pushing people like me to do more. And of course, here also Sister Veronica, Sister Miriam, and Sister Nora. And I think the legacy and the current contribution of the Sisters of Mercy in relation to addiction and a response to it, when the state wasn't doing enough, quite frankly, they were doing so much. And I think it's important to recognise that on days like today. I also want to recognise the contribution of others from the local drugs task force to Garda Síochána. My first meeting this morning was 7:30 in Anglesey Street, talking to the guards about community policing. It's an ongoing challenge, but certainly in the area of addiction, there is a real role for Garda Síochána, for community policing, for reaching out through the work that they do with communities to try to support and to spot people who need help and to encourage them in the right direction. To Dennis, of course, who gives great leadership now as chair of the Tabor Group, and also remembering today Finbar, who's been mentioned already, and of course the role of people like Pat Collin and Aileen and others who really have almost been a permanent fixture, for me anyway, in the context of the last 20 years and the story of the Tabor Group as you've looked to expand and do more and do more and do more. So to recognise and thank all of those people, some in their absence. I just want to, in relation to this particular project at the outset, I want to commend the work of the Tabor Group. This facility, I think, is going to set standards nationally, quite frankly. You know, this is a campus now, not just a facility, that will do a number of things, from improving the capacity to provide really effective 12-week residential programs for 10 to 16 residents at any given time, but also on the same campus, another 15 units on top of that for people who've come through that program but need a little bit of support to stay on the right track. And it could be any of us. That's the truth. Addiction doesn't choose people on the basis of where they come from or who they are or what their story is. Addiction is a challenge that many families from so many different backgrounds face, whether it's substance addiction or whether it's gambling or many other forms of addiction. It's a complex issue to resolve and unravel and help people to cope with. And that's what the Tabor Group does so well across multiple spectrums. And it's also become more and more linked with homelessness too. As we've come out of a recession, as our population grows in Ireland by about 75,000 a year at the moment, and as our construction industry and our housing market and our banking system are slowly rebuilding themselves, we are trying to catch up with a significant pressure and demand in the housing market that is putting many people under a lot of stress. And when people are put under stress and you add on addiction and other challenges to that, whether it's mental health issues or whatever, often the results can be quite tragic and very pressurized ones for individuals and their families. And in some cases, particularly because of lack of supply at the moment, it can result in homelessness too. And that's why I think having a resource here, which effectively is a sort of a continuum of care to deal with accommodation concerns and demand, as well as reinforcing the work that's being done here on addiction, is such a suitable model, not just for here, but for other parts of the country too. And certainly you'll have a strong advocate in me in the context of that brief. I spent some time as Minister for Housing, and the challenges that we as a government are trying to deal with at the moment are going to take time to solve. We have moved from building about 10,000 to 14,000 to 18,000. This year probably close to 25,000 housing units in the country. 25% of all new homes at the moment that are being built are social houses. It's a quarter of all new homes. We added about 8,000 social housing units to the stock last year. This year it'll be well over 10,000. And we need to then consistently provide between 10 and 12,000 extra social housing units each year to meet demand, as well as probably building close to 35,000 housing units in total of various different shapes and sizes and costs, from a functioning rental market to affordable housing to a normal house buying market that's appropriately funded and so on, to obviously social and affordable housing in much bigger numbers. And we have a plan, and it's happening and it's working, to add 50,000 social housing units to our social housing stock over 5 years. But it's not where we need to be yet. We know that. And in the meantime, the private rental market has to take up an awful lot of that pressure, and it's not able to cope. And that is why this week we've introduced a whole series of new measures to protect tenants in the private rental market, to ensure that we try to prevent what has been clearly happening in recent months, where landlords who only have one property, which is the vast majority of landlords in Ireland, who are selling those properties and therefore asking families to leave with nowhere to go, creating more pressures from a homeless perspective. Seeing about 20 families a week declaring themselves homeless, most of whom we can find alternative accommodation for us, but some of whom have to go into emergency accommodation, which is not where we need or want to be. And the only reason I'm raising that is that there is a link between all of these things, from mental health challenges, to addiction, to financial pressures, to accommodation, to housing, to homelessness. And in many ways the Tabor Group is trying to deal with a number of those issues, working with Garda Síochána, working with the Local Drugs Task Force, working with the HSE, working with local authorities, in this case Cork County Council. And this is a state partnership which we need to give leadership on, and then looking to government for funding through the Rebuilding Ireland programme, which is more than just about building houses. It's also about rebuilding lives, because of the aftermath of an extraordinarily dark and bleak recession for many families, that got people into very difficult circumstances that they otherwise could or would never have predicted before that happened. So I really do want to say that this project is about setting standards, but it's also about resetting people's lives. And I'm sure we have some clients in the room here who've come through the Tabor programme, and they are testament to that. And so what we have here is a campus of hope and recovery that people should be very proud of. There should be no stigma around these issues. This is a societal problem that together we need to resolve through more resources, better structures, professional intervention, and helping people to get back on a track of recovery so that they can forge their own future on their own, on the back of that. And so to everybody who's involved, from consultants to doctors, to healthcare professionals, to the management team here, to the Sisters of Mercy, who put an extraordinary amount of energy and drive into the structures here, to the Board of Management, who I know are here this evening. The journey from 1989 in Tabor Lodge, which was this little oasis in the middle of a rural area and I see a number of people from Tracton Parish here, which is where the Tabor Lodge system developed. That has now expanded into multiple facilities, and from what Dennis tells me, I expect to get a phone call fairly soon for the next phase of growth and expansion. And of course, this isn't about providing funding for Tabor Lodge. It's about, or for the Tabor Group, in this case in Fellowship House. This is about providing funding for a public service, which is being facilitated through the Tabor Group. And I'm very conscious of that, and this is money really well spent. Nobody should be thanking the government for the money. This is an investment of taxpayers' money to assist in dealing with a problem that is going to continue to be complex and challenging for society. And as this city and this county grows, and it will, we anticipate in the next 2 decades there will be at least an extra 1 million people in Ireland. Half of those won't have been born in Ireland. We will see a doubling of the number of people over the age of 60. And we will see the healthcare needs and knock-on consequences of all of that. But we will also have seen an extraordinary growth period in this city and county. Cork City and County will be the fastest growing region in the country by some margin for the next 2 decades. The city will grow at twice the pace of Dublin. And we can and need to plan for now a city of about 350,000 people in 2 decades' time, which is a significant change from where we've been, and of course a county which is also going to grow by about 90 to 100,000 people in that time as well. So you're really talking about a city and county of well over 800,000 people, that is an opportunity, but it's also going to provide a lot of challenges, where people, for whatever reason, find that they go through a difficult and sometimes dark period in their lives, and they need someone to take them by the hand and lead them through a program that's professionally driven, is proven and works, and to help them get back on the rails. And that's what the Table Group does really, really well, with a focus on addiction. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. This is a particular project that I kind of feel close to for a number of family reasons. And I'm delighted that the ambition isn't going to stop here for the Table Group, that actually success breeds more success and more ambition. And that is exactly as it should be. Could I recognise John Denny as well, of course, who lives pretty close to here, and who was a colleague and a competitor of mine for many years in politics. When I was cutting my teeth, I learned a lot from John Denny, and it's great to see him here. I know he's very close to this facility as well. So thank you to everybody. Obviously, look, it goes without saying to the design team, the architects, and the construction contractors, phenomenal job. Really good site. I remember when we were actually turning the sod on this site, we were trying to envisage what this would look like, and we were looking at infographics and so on, and it looks even better in real life. So congratulations for the work you've done. This is a great success story. It's a really important part of the social infrastructure of our city and county. And I look forward to the next project and the next ambition that the Table Group are going to bring forward. And we'll partner with you on that in the same way that we've partnered with you on Fellowship House. So I'm delighted to officially open the facility today and thank everybody who's been involved.